New York City in the 80s, graffiti in its heyday, the kid from the Disney Witch Mountain movies, Paul freaking Winfield, all of that is Dreams Don't Die. Dreams Don't Die is a 1982 made-for-television drama directed by Roger Young and starring Ike Eisenmann, Trini Alvarado, Israel Juarbe, Paul Winfield, and more. In Dreams Don't Die, Danny, a Queens area graffiti artist, is coming up on his high school graduation. His girlfriend is pushing him to make decisions about his future, but all he wants to do is make his art and be the king of the line. When his girlfriend gets mixed up with a drug dealer, though, Danny has a lot more trouble on his hands than he could have imagined. Like I said in my review for Freedom, growing up, I was always led to believe that made-for-TV movies were just not really that good by their nature. When Fun City Editions, a label whose output I've been really enjoying, announced they were going to do a box set of made-for-television films, I was a little torn, but I decided that they had led me to some pretty great films before, so let's take the ride, see where it goes. So this is the second film in a box set they've released called Primetime Panic. Dreams Don't Die is a film about that precipice between being a child and being an adult. Danny is a guy who has a passion. He lives for designing and tagging just about anything that has a surface he can paint on. His girlfriend Teresa wants to get married and see him do something with his life so they can get out of their Queens, New York neighborhood, but he doesn't take her seriously. They have a fight, and while they're not talking, she falls in with a drug dealer who offers her a chance to make money by being a courier for him. Suddenly, it's on Danny to make a decision about what he wants out of life and help Teresa get out of the situation that she's in. Dreams Don't Die is a solid film. It's not a masterpiece, but it is an enjoyable ride with a good script, and you just can't beat that time in New York City. Some people call it ruin porn, but I have an affinity for New York City stuff made around the 70s and into the 80s that showcases the city as it's crumbling. It was those years when the city was bankrupt and unraveling, and it's exhilarating to experience that through a well-made film. I do want to say that I recognize the fact that the lives of the people who lived in New York City at that time were definitely negatively impacted by the very things that I find interesting in so many of these movies. And I don't want to ever minimize the struggles that people went through during those times, but some of the films that came out of it are just masterpieces. Dreams Don't Die is fine. I enjoyed watching it, but I don't know that it's really something that I would revisit a lot. The story ultimately is pretty simple and feels almost like the PG-13 version of an after-school special. I will say that Paul Winfield is one of my favorite parts of this film in a small but pivotal role. Paul Winfield always regularly gave fantastic performances in any film or television that he was in. In this, he plays a beat cop who almost arrests Danny for painting, but realizes the kid has talent and tries to help him out. Trini Alvarado is also solid in this film, really putting in the effort to make her character feel more complex and real. The other male leads, though, Ike Eisenmann and Israel Juarbe, to me were good but didn't particularly stand out. Eisenmann seemed pretty stone-faced most of the time, and it never really felt like he was very concerned about much of anything until almost the end of the film. Juarbe feels a little too much like he's acting. There's not a lot of subtlety in his performance. It kind of feels like he's either A or B, and there's not really anything in between. I know in the commentary they talk a lot more highly of his performance, so I don't know, maybe it's just something personal on my part. Surprise standout, though, is Aaron Manning, who plays Obi, who's kind of like a neighborhood gun for hire. Manning has his only credited role in this film and doesn't speak a single word throughout the entire runtime, but becomes more and more of a menace as things progress. He's kind of like the Terminator in that way. He has a job and he just keeps going at it until he can either accomplish it or he's ended. I don't know if Manning ever intended to be an actor or someone just found him and said, hey, do you want to be in this movie? Make a couple of bucks. But it feels like he definitely has a screen presence in Dreams Don't Die. Every time he would appear, I definitely started to get a sense of dread. I want to talk about a specific scene real quick before I move on to technical stuff. There's a scene where Paul Winfield's cop, Charlie, takes Danny and Teresa to the Guggenheim. He's doing it because he wants Danny to see other types of art and to know that he could make art beyond spray painting trains and tagging every surface he can. And to me, that's one of those magic of New York scenes. There aren't many cities like it. You can hop on the train in Queens, pop over to Manhattan to hang out in one of the world's finest art museums for a couple of hours, and then be home for dinner. New York City, even at its worst, has always had a magic to it, and that scene really stuck out to me as exemplifying that. From a technical standpoint, there is some good cinematography peppered into this film, but there's a lot of overlit sequences which feel very television movie to me. Unlike the previous film in this box set, Freedom, which uses a lot of natural light with accents, Dreams Don't Die feels like they had a full lighting truck and damn it, they were going to use every single one of those lights. It can feel unnatural at times, and that's unfortunate. I don't know the technicalities of all that, whether they felt like shooting it like that was a necessity for the standard definition presentation on a CRT television, or it was just a misguided choice by cinematographer Tony Emi. It's hard to make New York City in any era look bad, but some of the shots of this film are kind of a travesty. As for the Blu-ray itself, Dreams Don't Die comes with a really good commentary track by graffiti historian Dino Persebrio and the man behind Fun City Editions himself, Jonathan Hertzberg. Just like the Freedom track, I found this commentary to be really informative and is a great companion to the movie, filling out some of the behind the scenes, specifically talking about graffiti artist Dondi, who designed and executed the graffiti for the film, the ins and outs of being the first generation graffiti artist, and just some general talk about New York City in that era. I highly recommend listening to this commentary after you watch the film because it really does add some color to the whole experience. There's also an essay by Vinegar Syndrome's Justin LaLiberty that discusses where a TV movie like Dreams Don't Die fits into the pantheon of graffiti films of the time. One technical note, like I said in my video for Freedom, you could watch these in 1:3:3 or 1:8:5 aspect ratios. Like Freedom, I chose to watch in 1:3:3 because that is how all these were intended to be shown to the domestic audience, but you can feel free to watch them however you like. I will say that I usually watch them in 1:8:5 when I watch the commentaries, and to be honest, I think I prefer the 1:3:3 aspect ratio for these. It just kind of feels right to me. That's it for Dreams Don't Die. Definitely worth checking out with Freedom in the Primetime Panic box set. In a future video, we're going to be talking about the last film in the box, Death Ride to Osaka. Until then, you can like, comment, and subscribe below, and I will see you in the next one.